Just stop selling and just help people. Because if you just help people, they'll pay attention to you forever.
What's up, captains? Now, before we dive into today's episode, I have a very exciting announcement. I am now officially accepting applications to work one-on-one with me in the next round of the Captain's Lifestyle program. The next group starts July 1st, and I am only accepting 10 clients. July 1st is exactly halfway through 2021. So if you're not 100% satisfied with the way the first half of the year has gone for both you and your business, this is the perfect opportunity to get things back on track. I work specifically with social entrepreneurs who want to grow their impact, optimize their work-life balance, and fulfill their entrepreneurial vision. We accomplish this by maximizing your health, happiness, and productivity. Over the course of the 3-month program, we cover the 6 pillars of optimized human performance: mindset and brain health, sleep, communication, nutrition, exercise, and biohacks. Basically everything you need to take you and your business from average to excellent. But don't take my word for it. Listen to what my former client, Nori, a financial consultant and founder of a nonprofit organization, has to say. Best decision of my life was signing up. Thanks, Taylor. I mean, come on. On average, my clients are able to increase their time management and productivity by over 300%. Imagine what you could do if you were 300 times more productive than you are right now. What would that even feel like? Well, if you're one of the lucky 10 who get accepted into my program, you'll get to find out for yourself. To start the application process, head over to info.thecaptainslifestyle.com and enter your name and email. Again, that's info.thecaptainslifestyle.com and in your name and email. All right, now on to today's show. Hello, and welcome aboard another episode of the Captain's Lifestyle Podcast. This is your captain speaking, Taylor Morgan. On today's episode, we have another special guest. His name is David Deutsch. David is a world-renowned direct response copywriter, marketing strategist, author, and copywriting coach. He specializes in what he likes to call copy repair, which is turning underperforming promotions into winners. David, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks, Taylor. It's great to be here.
So tell us a little bit first about your background. What got you into the world of copywriting and marketing?
Yeah, I kind of fell into copywriting in a way. I was working at an ad agency doing some administrative things, and it was like I was a temp, like it was just a temporary thing between teaching jobs. And it was Ogilvy and Mather, which I had vaguely heard of the name Ogilvy, but I was like, oh, an ad agency. Okay, whatever. And, I was working there. I said, gee, as long as I'm here, I could maybe write some of this stuff. So I tried my hand at writing it and did well, and eventually became a writer, worked in advertising for a few years, worked for other ad agencies, doing a variety of things. Some of it was copywriting and creative directing. I would go help pitch new business, help take care of accounts, buy media. So that was a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun when you work for smaller ad agencies where you can do all the different things. And then eventually I discovered direct response. I discovered Jay Abraham and a whole new way of thinking about what advertising could do. Like, wow, people would actually send people money directly. It doesn't have to be all about image and TV commercials and things like that. And so I started doing more direct response kind of advertising, working with big publishers, people who make supplements, people who sold all sorts of things. And found that I really enjoyed that element of it too. So that's kind of my journey here today.
Awesome. So you got to work with David Ogilvy.
Well, I wouldn't say work with him, maybe a little bit of a stretch. He was there at the time. He was an influence. He walked the halls when he wasn't in Paris at his chateau. His dictums came down from on high, and you were always inspired by what he did and learned from that. It was almost like a teaching hospital where you just learn from doing. There's an environment of learning there.
And he's considered the father of kind of modern advertising, correct?
Yeah, in some ways, he was great. It was great preparation for direct response because he believed in direct response advertising, even though he was a mainstream Madison Avenue ad guy. He called direct mail his secret love and his first love and secret weapon, because he had done a postcard mailing for a hotel back in England that did very well. And he also had that attitude of it's not creative unless it sells, unless it works, unless it does what you want it to do.
Yeah. I'm not familiar with Mather. Is he a big player in the space as well?
No, he was just someone from I think today it's just Ogilvy Advertising or whatever. Mather was the English company that kind of financed Ogilvy's starting an agency here. And then
Mhm.
eventually Mather went by the wayside, and no one can say whether it's Mather or Mather. So,
Okay. So before we go any further, let's talk a little bit, or you talk a little bit about why copywriting and marketing is so important in business. Because for myself, I'll give a personal example. I thought that by me just having the knowledge and experience was enough. I thought,
mhm,
the phrase "build it and they will come." I thought, okay, I have this amazing product and service now, and as soon as I announce it to the world, and you know not really announcing it in any specific strategical way because I didn't have an idea of marketing or copy or anything like that, I thought that people would just start flowing to me because they needed
mhm.
it, but that was absolutely not the case. So talk to us a little bit about why copy and marketing are so important.
Well, certainly you can have a product, and obviously, if no one knows about it, it's got to be communicated to people, um, why they need it. I mean, even just starting from why they need it, a lot of people don't know why they need things. A lot of people don't know that they have problems that can be solved by either a product like yours, much less yours in specific. So sometimes they don't even know they have the problems, right? They don't know that they're, I don't know, let's say you increase people's self-esteem, right? They might not know that their lack of self-esteem has hindered them in every way in their lives, right? Hindered them in business, hindered them in getting jobs, hindered them in making money, hindered them in relationships, right? It's hindering them in their relationships with their children, and they're passing that on to future generations, right? Um, and then they don't know that there's solutions out there, right? That they can be coached out of that they can find their natural born, self-esteem, and that can be nurtured with a good coach. So part of it is just communicating that. And then how do you then differentiate yourself from a million other coaches out there? You could be really good, but unless you are able through copy and through marketing, the marketing gets them there, right? The marketing gets the message in front of them, right? So you've got to get in front of them, and then you've got to get the message to them that you're different. You're not the same as all these other people, or your product is not the same, that it's really different, and it really can help you achieve the things you want to achieve in life. Because you're never going to get people to want stuff. You're never going to create desire, right? But you can, as Eugene Schwartz says, you can channel desire, right? They want certain things, right? People want more money. They want respectability. They want to be good providers for their family. They want good health. And if you can't create that want, but you could show them how they can achieve that, how you can help them achieve that, or how your product can help them achieve that. And that's in the writing and the marketing, right? Getting the copy in front of them and getting them to pay attention, keeping their interest, and convincing them that you've really got something.
Yeah. I heard that people don't like to feel like they're being sold. They like to feel like it's their choice to go out and buy something. So I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs when they're just starting are spending too much of their focus on this is my product, you should buy this, as opposed
Mhm.
to saying, okay, here are the problems that you could be facing, and here's how I could potentially solve them. Not necessarily selling at them, but more of like what you were talking about is because a lot of, like, for me specifically, a lot of my clients struggle with sleep issues, but they don't know how those sleep issues are directly affecting everything else in their life, everything
Right.
in regards to health, happiness, productivity. They don't know that that's affecting their sales and business, because there's this myth floating around that you have to only sleep 6 or less hours to be a successful entrepreneur. That's almost the opposite of the case. If you are
Right.
sleeping less than 7 hours a night, it's impossible to be operating at your maximal productivity. So that's part of my struggle, is to getting them to understand that you might not know that you have an issue just because you've been operating at this level for so long. You just think that it's normal to wake up feeling tired and kind of move sluggishly throughout your
Yeah.
day. And yeah, I tell my clients all the time that it doesn't matter how good your product or service is. If nobody knows about it, then you have no business. So
Mhm.
let's now go into the different types of advertising. So what's the difference between marketing and copy? You said that marketing drives people in, and copy keeps them reading, or what's the difference there?
Well, marketing, I think, is all the mechanisms to get people to pay attention to your message, right? Or to get your message even in front of them, right? Because the copy really gets them to pay attention. But how do you get, I mean, people are out surfing the internet, they're out looking for things, right? The marketing is what kind of brings them to your message. The marketing is the SEO, it's the native ads, it's the emails maybe that people send to their list for you. It's a million and one ways to get people to stop what they're doing and go check out what you've got to say. And of course, there's so many ways now to do. It used to be like, okay, you run radio ads, you run TV ads, you run this, you do that, send direct mail. But now there's all sorts of funnels, all sorts of ways that you get people's attention. Social media is a whole method of getting people to your message.
Mhm.
Um,
Let's
I
so Oh, go ahead.
I did want to address one thing that I thought was interesting that you brought up is the whole idea of about selling them, right? And about the people not liking to be sold, which is true. I think one of the things I teach people to do, right? One of the things I think is the easiest kind of hack for people is in some ways to just stop selling and just help people. Because if you just help people, they'll pay attention to you forever, right? And they'll want to buy from you. So just like you want to buy from the car salesman that tells you, that gives you good advice about buying a car. So look, if you buy a car from me or not, you don't want to get a 4-cylinder car because the 4-cylinder car is always going to be struggling. It's always going to be underpowered. And one of these days it could get you killed because you can't get, out of the way fast enough. So just trust me, buy from me or not, you want that 6-cylinder car, right? And it's the same thing with what we do, right? The more you can help people understand about sleep, the more you can help them understand that, what not getting enough sleep does for you neurologically, biologically, not getting enough oxygen, not getting the rest that the brain needs, how that affects every system in your body. And even what they can do about that, right? Like not just buy my product really, but what they can do, right? How do they get more sleep? How do they relax more? What are, a couple of things that they can do? And then it kind of becomes, and hey, if you want like a system for if you're really kind of in a hurry, right? And you don't want to go out and do this stuff yourself and find out about it yourself, I've put together, right, a course for you, right? Or I've got this program or whatever it is that you've got that helps you do it as quickly, efficiently, and as effectively as possible.
Yeah, I've said that in the past. Like, I'm not teaching, and probably most people out there are not teaching or have any new revolutionary information. Like, all of the information that's ever been created in the world is out there somewhere for free, with YouTube, libraries, podcasts. Like, it's all out there somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So that's exactly what I say. Like, I'm not teaching anything revolutionary. Like, you can go find out how to improve your sleep for free by reading all these books and listening to these podcasts. But if you want to find out what's worked for me, the roadblocks that I've faced, and so I can help keep you accountable and give you the exact step-by-step process in the correct order without wasting all that time kind of piecing it together yourself,
Mhm.
then yeah, then you have to pay for this kind of package. And so I give out all my information for free. That's why I wanted to start this podcast, is to disseminate, if that's the right word, or inseminate, whatever,
Right.
information out to as many people as I could.
Mhm.
Um, because information I found is usually not the issue. Most people know that they should be sleeping
Mhm.
around 8 hours of high quality sleep, that they should be eating a better diet, that they should be exercising, they should be reducing their stress. They know all that. It's not the information that's the problem. It's a lot of times it's the accountability aspect of it. And it's um, them knowing the full impact of their decisions.
Mhm.
So going back to what we were talking about before, let's get into the different types of advertising. Because, like you mentioned, now,
Mhm.
especially with social media blowing up, it's not just television ads, radio, billboards. Let's get into all the different types of advertising and the pros and cons of each.
Yeah, well, it's of course not only different types, but in a way they all and pros and cons of each, but it's how they all work together. So like social media might get people on your email list, right? So it's not social media marketing or email marketing, right? It's how do you use social media to get people onto your email list, and then you can market to them most effectively. Um, so different types. There's certainly, well, I mean, there's mainstream media, right? There's television, infomercials, television advertising, radio advertising, which could be very effective for some people and is very, surprisingly inexpensive. Um, there's of course advertising on the internet, whether that's um, native ads, right? That get people to a landing page, and then you sell them on the landing page, or you get them to ask for a free report, and then you get them on the email list. So that funnels to the email list, right? Um, and social media, it's the same thing. You can sell on social media, you can take ads on Facebook, or you can look at Facebook as a way of generating names for your email list. Have people sign up for a free report, or go to your blog. um, Direct mail, that's a really underutilized medium, right? Sending anything from postcards to people's homes to, I've sent, boxes that, people get by FedEx, and they go, what is this? Right. But that's when you've got like 200 CEOs maybe that that you are marketing to. That's a great way to do that.
Yeah. So speaking of that, how much of this, or how much of this correlates to what your specific business or niche is? Like, I'm sure somebody in the, um, like you were saying, the CEOs, like a lot of them aren't going to be sitting around watching TV. So if you're trying to market to CEOs, you're probably not going to want to buy a TV commercial, for example.
Right.
So
Right.
talk to us a little bit about the different types of advertising based on, I guess, different goals.
Well, at the margins, I always love at the margins, right? It just, at the margins, you could almost do any type of advertising to anyone, right? Run a commercial on the Super Bowl, CEOs will see it and know about it, right? It may cost you, I don't know, what is it, $500,000 or something like that,
I think it's
but
multiple millions.
multiple millions of dollars for a 30-second commercial. But, CEO will see it, of those companies. Um, but yeah, if you're marketing to CEOs, you want to use very high end direct mail. You want to use what's the other thing? Like magazines, like the Rob Report, Yachting Today. jet, magazines about jets and personal jets or jet rentals, net jets and things like that, right? The high-end Amex magazine, the frequent flyer magazines. Like, where are they, right? Where are they going? What association do they belong to? How do you reach them in that way? Sometimes with media, reaching people, you've got to be just really clever about figuring out, well, where do these people hang out, right? Like they're hanging out in yachting magazines because a lot of them own boats, or they're buying expensive real estate. They're reading the Sunday New York Times. Um, so, and then if you're mass marketing, then of course things like social media, direct mail. It really depends a lot about that on what your product is, what your budget is, um, and what your follow up is, right? There's a lot of ways to generate phone calls, get people to call for something. But if you don't have a good telemarketing department, that may not be something you want to do.
Mm.
So
Mhm.
a lot of it depends on infrastructure and how you can use that infrastructure. Um, if you've got a good call department, then maybe you want to do something like postcards and just say, there's a phone number on it, call this number, find out how to, why sleep could be ruining your life and what to do about it, or, whatever it is.
Yeah, so it sounds like the biggest thing, or the first thing that you should do is define your ideal client and understand where they're spending their attention, right? Like,
Right.
and that will kind of lead you to where you should be spending your advertising dollars. Are you familiar with Gary Vaynerchuk?
Yeah.
So he talks a lot about underpriced attention, and he's talked
Right.
a lot recently about um, like the TikTok, for example, having underpriced attention because there's not that many people on the platform yet. So that could be a place to grow your business. LinkedIn. So where do you think the underpriced attention is currently? Because in the past, TV commercials used to be extremely underpriced when they first came on, and so now they're extremely overpriced. So where do you think would be the best? I guess the best bang for your buck. And I know that it kind of depends on what you're selling and who you're selling to, but I guess just broad terms.
I don't know if I would look at it as an underpriced medium so much. I think that the biggest bang for your buck is probably personality, and it's probably having a voice and standing for something,
What
you
do you mean by
know?
that? You mean like your own personal personality, like, and
Yeah.
how you portray that?
And how you portray that. I mean, look at the stuff the Harmon brothers do in those funny viral videos that sell. You've seen them for mattresses and poopery and things like that, where they're just funny things that you want to send to your friends, right? Um, so, and someone like Elon Musk is a great example of someone that gets a lot of free media because he's got a personality and he says outrageous things and he's going to Mars and he's, and people, I mean, Trump did that, love him or hate him, right? It wasn't that any media was underpriced, but he took advantage of the fact that people pay attention to people that create controversy, that are outspoken, that have a definitive point of view.
Do you think there's such a thing as bad publicity?
Oh, of course. Yeah. I mean, of course, you could, especially these days, right? You can get a lot of people angry. So I don't know that you want to, that may be a bad example, but I don't know that you want to polarize people, but you want to be maybe outspoken about things like, like the sleep thing, right? Um, Maybe you want to be a voice for damn it, get to bed, people. There's so much that's going on that's caused. I mean, people are having accidents on the road. People are making bad decisions. One of these days, someone's going to like press the button for a nuclear bomb because he didn't get enough sleep that night. It's crazy. people are air controllers are flying airplanes with not flying them, but they're controlling them with not enough sleep, right? And they don't realize it. Even if they get 8 hours sleep, it might not be, they really might have only gotten 6
Yeah.
of, the right kinds of sleep, or whatever the proportion of REM and deep and all that is. So I think the more you become kind of soundbiteable, that kind of gets you on Oprah. It gets you when a magazine is looking for someone to comment about sleep issues, who are they going to go to? Right? They're going to go to the guy with the big mouth about these things, that's outspoken about it. Like, oh yeah, that guy that's always telling people go to bed, right? America needs to go to bed. Like get that guy.
Yeah. So you said that you don't think you should necessarily be polarizing, but it sounds like a lot of this is being polarizing, because from my perspective, I've been taught to be polarizing because I'm not trying to attract every single client. I'm not trying to market to everybody.
Right.
I don't want everybody to buy my service. So I've always been taught that I do want to be polarizing, because that will drive more of my ideal clients who I do want and push away the people who I'm not talking to. But you're
Right.
saying not to be polarizing?
Well, I don't, I think you don't want to piss people off, right? You want to maybe turn people off, or you want people like, oh, that's not for me, right? Because then there'll be people that is for me. But you don't want to make people angry.
You don't want to just be blatantly rude.
Right. Right. You don't want to be blatantly rude or offensive, or, negative about people's values or whatever.
Gotcha. Yo, Taylor here. So I'm sure you've heard me harp on sleep and basically every single podcast and video that I put out, because it truly is that important. And I'm excited to announce that I've created something very simple and very tactical that you guys can use to start improving your sleep immediately. In fact, it is the fastest way to improve the quality of your sleep, and therefore the quality of your life, with amazing results after just one single night of implementation. Seriously, this is the same nightly ritual that I personally use, and it's the same strategy that I teach all of my high-performing clients in the Captain's Lifestyle program. It's the 4-3-2-1-30 method, and I'm giving it away to you guys for free. All you have to do is follow the link in my Instagram bio or in the show notes of this podcast, and I'll send it over so you can start sleeping better tonight. But please do not sleep on this offer. It's literally free, so no excuses. Go do it, and sweet dreams. So now I'd love to dive deep into creativity, because it sounds like a lot of this, you said that it's not necessarily about the underpriced attention or platform or media, but it's more about your personality and the creativity that you can bring to these advertisements. And I agree. Like, even though I said that, TV commercials are extremely overpriced, I've seen some fantastic TV commercials to where I think in my head, like, wow, that is fantastic marketing. Like they went, they did something different than all these other TV commercials. So they stood out. So talk to us a little bit about creativity and how big of an impact that plays in advertising and copy.
Well, I think it plays a huge part in everything from developing products to how to market the products to what positioning to be, like that whole, like we were joking, but the whole, get to bed, America, to writing the copy itself, right? What's a creative way to open the copy to keep people's attention? What's a creative way to talk to people about sleep when they're like, when a lot of people are like, yeah, I know. I'm not getting enough sleep. I'm not getting enough sleep.
Yep.
I don't want to hear about it. Like, how do you be creative about that, right? How do you find a way to tell them something new they haven't heard before, right? Like this is a little bit overused, but like that there's a sleep switch in their brain that they can turn on and off, which is kind of true in a certain way, right? And that helps people just kind of understand it better. than a whole, 20-step process for things you should do before you go to bed and that you should start doing first thing in the morning in order to be ready to sleep and get your circadian rhythms all lined up. It's a lot easier to just like, okay, got a little switch. We're going to teach you how to turn. Now, maybe there's 20 things to do to turn off the switch, but at least there's a switch and
Yeah.
so that's kind of a creativity thing, right? This idea of a switch.
Yeah, because we were talking about before we started recording about people's attention spans, and
Mhm.
that it's getting worse and worse, especially with social media. Like your attentions and notifications too is just being brought everywhere else but where you want it to be. So especially if you're, I was going to say advertising on social media, but anywhere really, TV, TV commercials when they pop up, unless you have something super creative, everybody just instantly goes to their phone and now their attention's on the phone.
Right.
And so attention spans being at a minimum, what are some of your top strategies or tips to grab people's attention and to get them to either listen to or read what you have to say or watch?
Well, I think people should become students of what keeps people's attention, right? If you look around you, you see people watching every episode of Games of Thrones 24 hours in a row, right? So that keeps people's attention. So what do we learn from that, right? We learn that people love story. People love kind of that continuity of what's going to happen. They become invested in characters. Um, and they want to be taken into a world that's outside their world, right? People love worlds like that, whether it's the world of the fantasy world of Game of Thrones, whether it's the science fiction world of Star Wars, whether it's the world of even the world of you ever see the thing, The Big Short, the movie about the guy that sold short the whole housing boom.
Mhm.
And it was all about just the world of finance, but it was fascinating because they did it in an interesting way. So we like that. We like to be transported like that. So how do you, for instance, transport people into the world of sleep, right? What happens to your body when you sleep? Because that's really a very interesting thing that no one really knows about. We sort of know, oh yeah, we got to sleep and I got to sleep more and blah, 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 blah. But there's like this whole little world of things going on when you sleep, right? Well, it's almost like all these little people running around doing repair work, shoveling stuff into it, getting rid of some of the amyloid plaques that
Mhm.
form through the day, um, and chemical changes of all sorts. So if you can just kind of show that as like a world, people will be fascinated by it.
Yeah,
So,
as you were just saying that, what came to mind is dreams. And so
mhm,
this just popped into my head. Like if I could create some type of advertisement to where it starts off with some crazy random video that nothing makes sense for, I don't know, 5 seconds. And then it cuts to a person waking up. And then you find out that that was a dream that they were having.
right.
And that could kind of be, it sounds like be a creative hook to get people in. Um, it sounds like it would be a lot easier to do that with video or audio. What about reading? Because I know for myself, like when I'm scrolling through Instagram or any type of social media, I don't spend as much time looking at the copy as I do the picture, unless they do a
Mhm.
really good job of uh, bringing me in, or it's something that I'm really interested or curious about. So, what are
Yeah.
your suggestions when it comes to copy specifically on how to keep people engaged and keep them reading till the end?
Well, I think story, like we were just talking about, right? And bring them in, as you said, right? Like, let's take a look at what happens in the body when you sleep, right? Um, I think, and stories about people who, well, first of all, there's all sorts of stories, right? There's origin stories, right? How sleep was discovered or how it was discovered, you know, that you needed a certain amount of sleep, or how it was discovered what the best way to sleep is. The fact that we used to sleep in two different segments, right? There used to be the I forget what you call it, the two sleeps, or the midnight little thing at midnight where you're awake
Hmm.
and then you go back to sleep. Um, how did we discover circadian rhythms, right? Putting people down in caves and they got all messed up. And so you've got all these stories of famous sleep researchers, or somebody that goes without sleep, what happens to them. Like, that's a fascinating story, right? Like 1 hour without sleep, right? Cognitive starts to decline. 2 hours without sleep, blah, blah, blah. 3 hours without, and then like 2 days without sleep. It's pretty much equivalent to being like fall down drunk, right?
Yeah.
Just incapacitated. Those sorts of things are interesting. And I feel like I'm learning and being taken into new and different worlds. Writing copy that doesn't sound like copy I've read before. Copy, sleep is
Standing
very
out.
important, and with this new killer sleep program, you too will be able to get all the sleep you like. Bob from California, who writes, you don't want to sound like that. You want it to be fresh and new, like when you're talking to someone about it because you're excited about it, and you're not talking in that language. You're talking in your real language, your real voice. And that's what you want to find when you write. That's what you want to write from.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And yeah, just thinking from personal experience, that's what's got me hooked on whatever advertisement that I'm looking at. It's the ones that do something dramatically different than all the other ones, because all the other ones just start to blend together, and it's like you're hearing the same thing over and over, even though it's a different advertisement for a different company. Everybody's just kind of doing the same exact thing. So any way that you can stand out, it sounds like that is what can really drive people in. I want to talk about if you have any specific like habits or routines that can get you into a creative state, or what you do to get into a more creative state, or if you're just naturally creative. I'd like to know some of your strategies on um, boosting creativity or cultivating it.
Well, I think, there's two things about creativity, which is interesting because they're opposite in a way. One way to be more creative is to just get quiet, because things come to you when you're quiet. It's that whole thing of great ideas in the shower, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you just be still and listen, sit quietly, go for a walk, let ideas come to you.
Real quick, I don't want to cut you off, but
Sure.
personal experience of that happened to me today.
Mm-hmm.
So last night I had solved this problem that I was thinking of. Just it doesn't really matter, but for context, it was like a name of a certain category of something that I'm creating. I remembered it, it came to my mind what it was going to be last night as I was in bed. But
Mm-hmm.
because I'm in bed and I understand the importance of sleep, I'm not going to get up and go write it down and start working on it. So I was like, okay, I'll remember this in the morning. And then the morning comes around and I completely forgot what it was. I was pretty upset. I was like, dang, that was perfect. And I
Right.
was like, okay, what can I do to get this thought back? And because I understand this concept of, silence and meditation and how that
Mhm.
can create thoughts and ideas, I was like, okay, I'll go meditate. And so that's what I did. I went outside in the sunshine, meditated for a little bit, and within not even 5 minutes, it had come back to me. Just when
Mhm.
I stopped all excess, or not excess, but external stimuli. So no notifications. I wasn't on my phone. There's no
Right.
technology. I was just silent, and it came
Mhm.
to me. And so I just wanted to give that personal example, like what you said actually does work. So yes,
Yeah,
try it out.
thank you. The other thing, it's ironic, is almost the opposite of that. It's like deliberately stimulating creativity. Like one of the classic examples, and this is actually something I teach a lot and did a whole course on. But one of the classic examples of that is like the opposite, right? So, like for instance, you might do an ad, how not to fall asleep, right? And it's just a way of talking about the best ways to fall asleep, but it starts from how not to fall asleep. Like, watch your like get on your computer before you go to bed and your phone and
Mhm.
get all that blue light in your eyes. So
Yep.
your body thinks it's daytime and it wakes up. Um, so the opposite can be like dividing things up, right? How do you divide an idea up? How do you divide getting to sleep up into different segments so that you're not just teaching maybe it's not how to get to sleep, but it's how to wake up, right? Like that could have a big effect on your life, right? How to fall asleep, or that the key to a good night's sleep is what you do like 4 hours before you go to sleep. Like that's
Yeah.
interesting. And it just comes from that idea of dividing things up, right? Sometimes you can add things, right? Like, okay, I want to teach people about sleep. Let's say adding like celebrity is always a good thing to add, right? So it's like, the Britney Spears sleep trick or something like that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a little silly and stupid, but it's kind of like, it gives you an idea of like,
It works.
what can I add to this that's going to make it interesting, right?
That's why the tabloids are so successful at bringing people in. It's because it's these big, bold, crazy, ridiculous headlines, but it works.
Yeah.
It gets people's attention. So if I'm understanding you correctly, you're saying that another strategy besides the silence and the meditation to get into a creative state would be to do the opposite by, it sounds like what you're saying is like, if I'm trying to come up with advertisements or copy for sleep, like how can
Mhm.
I get people to sleep more? You're saying to think about it from the opposite perspective of
Right.
how to get people to not fall asleep.
Right. What what
Okay.
are, what are you doing that's not falling asleep, right?
Gotcha.
What's keeping you awake? And of course, that's only one of many things that you can, a process that you could do, right? You could do the opposite. You could divide. You could subtract. You could add to it. Subtracting is good because people try to do so many things, right? So it's how to fall asleep. Well, that's a big thing, right? But if you take away a lot of that, how to wake up, or how to get more REM sleep, right? Which is a little part, right? You've subtracted a lot from that, but you could probably make the argument that if you just focus on getting more sleep, then that's more REM sleep. That's all you need, because in order to do that, you need to be there for 8 hours, and you need to do all the things that are probably good for sleep anyway. But the idea of getting more sleep is, like you don't read a lot about how to get more REM sleep. You just read a lot about how to get more sleep or how to cure insomnia.
Mm. So you're saying try to make it as specific as possible.
Right. Right. And again, I'm not saying that's necessarily a better way, but it leads to
Mhm.
creativity. It leads to ideas, right? Because then you're not like, oh, what's an idea? But you're like, what's an idea that will come from making this more specific? What's an idea that could come from doing the opposite? And then sometimes you may do the opposite, and then you may find, well, that's not going to work, but that gives me another idea,
Mm.
right? So it's kind of like boing, 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 all, bouncing off of an idea to something else, even bad ideas. Because another secret of creativity is just volume. It's just come up with 100 ideas, right? Like 90 of them are going to be, 50 of them will be terrible.
Yeah.
20 will be mediocre, but there's going to be 10 good ones in there.
Yeah.
If you only come up with one idea or 10 ideas, right, then it may not happen. And a lot of times the later ones will be the good ideas, because you kind of get the junk out of your system first.
Mm-hmm.
And ideas trigger things, right? It's like you go from one idea to the other, and then eventually you come to something that's really good.
And just to clarify for the listeners, when you say write down 100 ideas, I'm guessing you mean unfiltered ideas, like
Yeah.
whatever is coming to your head, write it down. Because, like you said, a lot of them are not going to be good, but 10 out of those 100 will be really good. But that only comes when you basically turn off your filter, because a lot of people only want to, try to think about and write down good ideas. But first off, good and bad is subjective. So, that's, who are you to judge what's going to be a good ad and a bad ad? Sometimes for me, like something I put out on social media that I literally just made in 2 seconds does a lot better than the thing that I spent hours creating. So
Yeah. And
another thing that Gary Vee says is just like just create,
right. Right.
just get stuff out there, let your audience determine if it's good or not. And then by doing that, that will kind of help you understand what it is that your audience does resonate with, what is working and what's not.
I mean, look at all the bad ideas that have turned out to be good ideas, right? One day someone had an idea for an energy drink. And I thought, let's make it taste really terrible. Let's fill it with caffeine. Let's put it in a really small container and sell it for a really high price. And we'll call it Red Bull.
I love
And
the taste of Red Bull. But
and
yeah,
it was huge, right? One day somebody said, I know, let's sell an exercise program. And instead of saying how easy it is, let's say how hard it is. Let's say you really have to work hard at this program. And we'll give it some name like, I don't know, P90X or something like that. Just like it doesn't mean anything, right? But we'll just talk about how hard you have to work to do this program and how it's not for everyone. That's a really terrible idea, right? But it worked like crazy. So you just never know.
yeah. Same thing with like dating websites or dating apps. Like if you would have said 20 years ago that most people are going to be meeting their significant other on the internet, people would have thought you were
Yeah.
crazy. Like you're meeting some strange person you've never met. Or like Uber. Like if you would have said to parents 15 years ago, yeah, your daughter is going to be being taken from place to place via some stranger in a car that you've never met before, it's
Right,
like
right,
no
right.
way. But it's like, yeah, so that's exactly right.
Yeah.
um
Kind of like Clubhouse, right? Who would have ever thought Clubhouse? What are we going to do? Let's have an app, just audio. All right, you can have little videos of people so you can see it. No, no, no. We're just going to have little pictures of them in a little circle.
yeah, that's what I thought when
Yeah,
I first heard of Clubhouse. I was like, why what's that all about? What's the point? But then as I started using it, and this is actually how I got in contact with you,
that's right.
it's
Yeah.
it's been fantastic. And I've said since then, Clubhouse is basically a free mastermind of any topic that you'd like to learn more about, because you get all these experts in a room, and then it's essentially an interactive podcast to where you get to
Mhm.
hear the top strategies, the latest and greatest in that industry, and you get to hear it live, and it's fantastic. You get to make amazing connections like this right here. This is a
Mhm.
perfect example of how that worked. um, Last question. Well, I think last question. Are you familiar with microdosing with like psilocybin or
Yeah.
LSD? Have you, and feel free to not answer, but have you experienced with any of that for creativity?
Oh, no, I never have personally.
Mhm.
I know people who do and familiar with the, I've always found that interesting. I always found interesting that not only I think for the creativity of it, but in a way, the drugs kind of show you what's possible,
Yeah.
right? What you could do without it, that your mind could be that free and connected.
Yeah. From personal experience, I have not done LSD, but I have done psilocybin mushrooms. And you're absolutely right. I don't think that there's any way to describe it to somebody who hasn't done it. And
Mhm.
it's like once you do have that experience, a whole new world of just, it's like a new perspective. Like there's this whole other side that you never even knew was possible. And so my experience was on a trip dose, not specifically microdosing,
Mhm.
but I want to get into the microdosing um, side of it specifically for creativity. Um, and there's a lot of um, you know high performing CEOs and people who are getting into this just because it does have such a profound effect, because it's able to form new connections in the brain, specifically LSD for creativity.
Right.
um, but yeah, we won't go too deep into that here because neither of us are experts on it. um, so yeah, David, this has been fantastic. We're getting a little long here, so I don't want to keep you. So tell people where they can find more about what you're doing, how to boost their copywriting, all that stuff.
Yeah. There's a free report on copywriting that I'd love to give people. And they can get that at my website, which is davidldeutsch.com. So that's DAVIDL as in Lee, and then DEUTSCH.com. And there's articles there and videos and, blog posts. And you can also find out about different products that I have. But
Awesome. And who's this the free copywriting thing for? Is it anybody specifically?
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty much anyone that's interested in copywriting. It's kind of copywriting from A to Z.
Okay.
So for each letter, there's a copywriting tip.
Awesome. Yeah. And as we said at the beginning of the podcast, doesn't matter how amazing your product is. If nobody knows about it, you're not going to have a business. So if you do have an amazing product or service and you have not had, very much success recently in business, it's probably because of your content and your copywriting strategy. So I highly recommend going to pick up this absolutely free, what is it? A course, PDF videos?
Oh yeah, it's a PDF.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah,
Yeah.
PDF. But
Copywriting A
you
to
know,
Z.
one thing I would say too is, entrepreneurs make the best copywriters because they know their product and they know their market.
Hmm.
And that's a hard thing to, you know, to communicate to a copywriter. And it's also a hard thing to convey your own enthusiasm for your product and for what you do. And so, there's so much opportunity for entrepreneurs writing their own copy, and so many successful ones that have, people like Justin Goff, who I've worked with, that, formed a whole health division for Four Patriots, and just writing the copy for it. Because he was so good at it, because he knew the copy and he knew the products and he knew the market so well.
Yeah. Would you agree that copy is one of the last things that you should outsource when you're just starting out, just because of exactly what you just said? You know your product, you know your customer, you know exactly what you want to say. So it's your voice.
Yeah, it's hard to say if I would make a blanket recommendation on that. Um, Certainly, if you really can't write and absolutely not comfortable writing,
Mm.
then I would say not. But if you are comfortable writing, and a lot of it could just be dictated. You don't have to write like on a piece of paper, right? You could just talk into a microphone and record it and transcribe it.
Yep.
And that's a great start.
Yeah, good point. Awesome, David. Well, thank you again for coming on the show and spreading
Oh,
your wisdom. Any last words you want to leave them with?
the only thing that I would say is to try it, just try writing, just, and write a lot too. It's like we talk about ideas, right? It's like come up with a lot of ideas, right? Come up with, just write the copy and then, throw it away and write it
Mm.
again. Right.
Yeah. So that way there's no pressure that, this is getting
Yeah.
published. I like that.
Yeah. Do a first draft really fast. Just get it down on paper, because editing is easy. Writing is hard, but editing is easy.
Yeah.
So just get it on paper and then, and then edit it. Sometimes that works for a lot of people.
I need to take that advice myself. Sometimes I spend way too long just trying to come up with the perfect order for all of it. But it's like, yeah, you're absolutely right. I should just write it down and then edit it later.
Yeah. Because if you were talking to someone, you wouldn't sit there and figure out how to come up with perfect order, right?
Yeah.
You would just talk to them.
Exactly. Awesome. Well, yeah, David, thank you again for coming on. Glad we could connect on Clubhouse.
Yeah, me too.
Super cool. And yeah, to everybody listening, don't forget, live the captain's lifestyle. Peace.